The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 14th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
And today's reading is going to come from the Contemporary English Version Bible, and it reads, One Sabbath, Jesus was having dinner in the home of an important Pharisee, and everyone was carefully watching Jesus. Jesus saw how the guests had tried to take the best seats, so he told them, When you are invited to a wedding feast, don't sit in the best seat. Someone more important may have been invited. Then the one who invited you will come and say, Give your place to the other guest. You will be embarrassed and will have to sit in the worst place. When you are invited to be a guest, go and sit in the worst place. Then the one who invited you may come and say, My friend, take a better seat. You will then be honored in front of all the other guests. If you put yourself above others, you will be put down. But if you humble yourself, you will be honored. Then Jesus said to the man who had invited him, When you give a dinner or a banquet, don't invite your friends and family and relatives and rich neighbors. If you do, they will invite you in return, and you will be paid back. When you give a feast, invite the poor, the paralyzed, the lame, and the blind. They cannot pay you back, but God will bless you and reward you when his people raise from the dead. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise you, O Christ.
You may be seated. A little later on here, we're going to call up all of our students heading back to school or back in school, and we're going to put a special blessing on them for their school year. We're going to take a moment and we're going to pray for their school year and their teachers, their classmates, their parents. And we're going to hold pause for what all the school year brings in. Before we get there, I want you to imagine your lunchroom or cafeteria when you were in school. Remember the smell, the fresh baked cookies or the pizza cooking, the sweaty kids that just came in from recess or Fayed, the bleach or the cleaners that the dishwashers were using. Get those smells going in your nose for a minute. Now remember the sounds. The kids laughing and talking, and each group trying to be louder than the one next to them. The teachers trying to whisper in hopes of calming these voices down. The lunch people asking to pick your choices, what you want in the line. The clanking of the dishes coming together. The hums of the appliances. Imagine that with the sound. Now the taste. For me, the square pizzas we used to get, and I'm sorry, kids, that you do not get to experience those really good square pizzas the lunch ladies used to make. They were wonderful. It was soft and sweet sauce and soft crust. It was wonderful. And then there were the famous peanut butter bars. And I can still taste them, the chewy sweet cookie bar, the yummy peanut butter taste and the frosting. I can still remember that taste. And now remember the feeling, the air movement of the constant warm to cold, depending on which doors opened at what time and where you sat. Did you end up directly underneath the fan that is blowing cold air down on you, or you by the door that keeps opening and shutting? The wind of the kid running past you and blows up your napkin. The fullness of the meal in your belly. And the soreness in your cheeks from the laughter you just had with your friends. As an adult, I can look back to my school age years and remember these same smells and tastes and sounds, and remember some of them being my favorite time. That time that I would just get to sit and relax with my friends and hang out and not have to worry about a teacher yelling at me for being too loud or disrupting class, just a nice, relaxed time. Thinking back to this as I was writing this, it made me giggle because now I can remember why when you ask kids what their favorite part of school is, they say lunch. But I want to take you back to my first day back to Hayward Middle School. I moved away at the end of 4th grade, and I came back to live with my dad in March of my 6th grade year. Middle school's tough. We all know it. We've been through it. We're going through it. It's a tough time. Now I'm coming back to kids that I knew, but we've all changed because we're all in middle school now, and it's middle of this school year. And it's lunchtime. And I am terrified because I am entering into this lunchroom with not having an idea of where to go or what to do, who to sit with. And so I quietly went up and got my food, and I went and sat in the very back in a table all by myself. See, I was one of the first ones in there, and I didn't know where to sit. Well, I sat in the table that everybody classified as the nobody table. And nobody sat with me, and I had lunch all by myself. And it was terrible until I went to bring my tray up to the lunch ladies, when a couple of people said, "Hey, you're Tiffany. You were here before, weren't you? Did you just move back? Where have you been?" And we sat down and started talking. This became my group of friends. They invited me in to be part of their circle that they had started to form. And it was like I had been invited to the best seat. To this day, we are still friends. I started in the lowest seat possible, the nobody section, and ended at a beautiful table that was so full people brought chairs over to be part of. I tell you this story today because this is a lot of what Jesus is talking about, and maybe some terms that we're a little bit more familiar with. See, Jesus is talking to the Pharisees. Now, these Pharisees are the people that thought they were the most prestigious group, most religious. They were trying to follow and making sure everyone strictly followed the Mosaic law and the Jewish customs and celebrations. Everything had to be to a T. And they were watching what Jesus was doing because they knew he was doing something differently, and they wanted to catch him in doing something wrong. So Jesus tells this story about this wedding feast. And back in this time, this wedding feast was something that went on for a week. So you came and went from your table for a full week in these weddings, not just a couple hours. And Jesus wanted to show them that you don't know who all the bride and groom have invited. So when you go to try to sit next to the wedding party to feel that most importance, maybe you're taking the seat from their grandparents or their siblings. So maybe it's best to go sit in the back, and then when somebody says, "Hey, you're supposed to sit up here." That feeling you get when you get to move from that low spot because you've been invited to this other spot filled with more people, filled with a group instead of alone. When we allow God to invite us into these different spaces, it's to get out of ourselves and into the people around us and experience God. The communion table. This table that everyone is welcome, that Christ calls us to. It doesn't matter your age, your gender, your color of your skin, your wealth, nothing matters. Christ says, "Come to the table. I invite you all to sit down and share in this meal that I have brought." There is no best seat at Christ's table, as they're all the same. Jesus wants that remembrance of us at this table, knowing that we are God's children at this table. That is the only identity that matters at this table, is we are God's children. and to take that with us out into the world and to embrace every situation with it. From the lunchroom to the communion table, listen to God's direction for picking your seat. Seek out those that may be lost and help them be found. Open the doors for someone to enter. And take that journey with them as they cross that threshold. Maybe even though the door is open, they're having a hard time coming in. And remember, we are all God's children, and the Christ table has no best place. Amen.